Namo Pancha Shakyamuni Pho. Namo Pancha Shakyamuni Pho. Namo Pancha Shakyamuni Pho. So now our short retreat is slowly nearing the end. So we have to round up the meaning somehow, and tomorrow we will then devote our time to actually to these 16 exercises that summarize the practice of mindfulness of the breath, and they also summarize the practice of 4 foundations of mindfulness. In the Buddhist tradition, the essence of mindfulness is explained as the 4 foundations of mindfulness. It's very important to keep in mind. And this practice of mindfulness is, especially in the northern tradition, explained as the combining of shamatha and vipassana. Very important to understand. According to the northern tradition, like Abhidharma Kosha, the essence of mindfulness is wisdom. But actually, so to say, the manifestation of mindfulness is concentration. When we are mindful, we become concentrated. But the essence of mindfulness is wisdom, and the wisdom means, in Buddhism, the understanding of the selfless nature. Here it is translated as identitylessness. It is very interesting translation. So through the practice of mindfulness, we actually want to understand the identitylessness. And in the northern tradition, emphasizing the achievement of the perfect Buddhahood. The identitylessness especially refers to the identitylessness of all the phenomena. Now, in the tradition emphasizing the achievement of the Buddha disciple, the emphasis is on the identitylessness of the persons. And actually the identitylessness of the phenomena is the emptiness. You will find actually in the northern tradition, in Chinese agamas, the sutra of the ultimate reality, emptiness. Now, to realize emptiness, to realize nirvana, that means to realize the identitylessness, we have to penetrate the 4 Noble Truths. In this tradition, we have mentioned the 16 objects. The last 2 objects, there is purification of the defilements. And the purification of defilements is by the worldly path. We have to always contemplate that this text explains the path of to become an arahat. Buddha is also an arahat, but he has the Dharmakaya. So in order to realize the Dharmakaya, our object is the identitylessness of all phenomena. Now, we want to realize the ultimate reality. The only way is to realize that which is beyond the suffering of the world, is to penetrate the Four Noble Truths. Now, to penetrate the Four Noble Truths, so the teachers of the Bodhisattva path emphasize, in the path of the disciples, the noble truths of suffering is emphasized. It is taught in the agamas when one understands the truths of suffering, one understands all four truths. So here also it starts with the penetration of the truths of suffering. And the real suffering, the ultimate suffering, is impermanence. This is understood not by a non-enlightened person. We have to be enlightened really to understand it. We can understand it partially, but to understand it clearly, we have to attain the direct seeing of the ultimate reality. When we have penetrated it, then of course, then the old habit of clinging, as powerful as it is very much weakened. Why? Because once we realize the ultimate reality, actually not realize but just see directly, then this suffering will not be so real. Because we have a direct experience of that which is beyond suffering. So the path of the disciple is to make the suffering of impermanence very, very clear. You can do it on the breath also. Through meditating on the breath, through observing the impermanence of the breath, then in more advanced stages of vipassana, we actually only see the cessation. And when we only see the cessation, the mind does not turn to arising anymore, then we are open for the realization of the highest. This is the path of the disciples. So we practice, as explained here, we practice the seeing this impermanence as a boil, as a sickness. That is the truth of suffering. Now, the teachers of Mahayana emphasize, rather than emphasizing the truth of suffering, emphasize the truth of path. In order to realize the ultimate reality, we have to realize the middle path. And the middle path, we have explained, will only appear when the Four Noble Truths are seen all together. Very important to understand. This is in all Buddhist traditions the same. Normally when we see the suffering of impermanence, we do not see the cessation of, and we do not see the middle path. When we see the cessation, we do not see the arising, and we do not see the cause of arising. But when the object cannot be grasped, when there is an ultimate object, we can see all the Eightfold Noble Paths all together. Normally when we contemplate only sections of the Eightfold Noble Paths. We cannot see the whole. In order to see the whole, the ultimate reality has to be revealed. In the ultimate reality, then the wisdom, the morality and concentration, they actually merge into one. So, if we practice Buddhism according to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, we practice the worldly path, and the worldly path is explained as understanding the grossness as suffering, and practicing the more and more subtle states. This is a worldly path. This is a path of traditional explanation of shamatha with a worldly object. Then, by this path, worldly path, we also remove the defilements. But as long as there is a worldly object, only temporarily. In order to remove the defilements definitely, there has to be the wisdom part accomplished. And the wisdom part consists in penetrating the Four Noble Truths and removing the, what we have mentioned, the so-called perversions. Only the wisdom can remove the ignorance. The worldly path can only harm the ignorance, but cannot remove the ignorance. It is the supermundane path which can completely remove the ignorance. This is a traditional explanation. And the supermundane path is the contemplation of the Four Noble Truths, here translated as training by engaging with reality. When we have penetrated the Four Noble Truths, we have the direct seeing of the, so to say, object of liberation. But the object of liberation is not object in the real sense. Object is something we can grasp, but that object we cannot grasp. Actually, the object is defined as something which we can grasp. Suoyuan. In Sanskrit, alambana, something we can grasp, we can hang the mind on. But the ultimate reality is precisely that we cannot grasp. And in the teachers of the path of Bodhisattva emphasize this reality is to be contemplated. So the emphasis is on the middle path. This reality is revealed by the middle path. Middle path leads to cessation. Suffering leads to the penetration of suffering, leads to the penetration of the cause of suffering. Through understanding the cause of suffering, we understand the end of suffering. And through understanding the end of suffering, we understand the path. This is the traditional explanation. But the teachers of Mahayana can start with the path, with a middle path, contemplation of the middle path. This contemplation of the middle path contains the understanding of the cessation. So you will find very interesting explanations, like in the great Ta Pan Nye Pan Jin and so on, that the real understanding of suffering means no suffering. Very interesting, but in a way it is just turning to the non-dualistic vision. It is a skillful means for understand non-dualism, nothing else, just a way of explanation. If we start holding to these ideas, we will only get confused. So, through the Eightfold Noble Path, the object of liberation is revealed, and we can start by understanding the Four Noble Truths together by meditating on the middle path. This is emphasized by the teachers of the Bodhisattva path. But here, emphasis, it explained the path of the Arahat, so it starts and emphasizes the truth of suffering. When we understand the truth of suffering, it shows very clearly we will understand the truth of cause of suffering. Understanding cause of suffering, we understand the end of suffering, and by understanding end of suffering, we understand the middle path. So middle path comes to the end. And this is a traditional explanation. So when seeing the ultimate reality is the condition for the eradication of craving. First we see the ultimate reality, then, so to say, we become the ultimate reality. We penetrate the ultimate reality by practice of the path of meditation. And in this scripture, interesting, this practice of the path of meditation is the practice of these 16 exercises, the 4 foundations of mindfulness based on the breath. In a way, it is connected with this idea we have already mentioned, that we should not really separate these stages of the practice. We should see them as a one whole. And this is especially emphasis of the teachers explaining the Bodhisattva path. So even so, it explained the path of the disciples. Somehow, this understanding of the Bodhisattva path remains in the background. We have mentioned that. So, through the penetration of or through the seeing of the ultimate reality, we can eradicate completely the cause of suffering, and that is done by these 16 exercises. This is more or less the meaning. It does not mean that these 16 exercises are not connected with the counting, aggregates, dependent origination and seeing of the reality. They are indeed there. But in order to realize them, we have to actually experience this ultimate reality first. And the realization and the means of realization, especially emphasized by the teachers of the Bodhisattva path, cannot be separated. This is very important to understand. The means of realizations and the realization is the path. They cannot be separated. So only when you have seen the ultimate, you can actually see the path. If you have not seen the ultimate, you do not see the path. It is in a way also explained in the Agamas. In the Agamas you have the Ratha Vinita Sutta, the rally of chariots. The process of liberation is an organic process. You cannot separate the former from the next one. And you understand it only when you have attained really the direct experience of that which is beyond suffering. Otherwise, you will not see that this suffering is not real. When you have realized the ultimate reality, then you can see it. However you explain, actually it is the same principle. We can only see the suffering as something not real, the ignorance as something not real. When we have seen the other side, when we have not seen the other side, the ignorance indeed will be the ignorance, suffering will be the only reality. But the ignorance, so the Buddhist philosophy, will be greatly reduced when we understand the dependent origination. So the dependent origination is the opener of the what here is called engaging with reality. That's why it is translated as engaging with reality. Without understanding dependent origination, so the Buddhist emphasis, you cannot really engage with reality. Why? Because you will always insist on the substance in the beings and substance in the phenomena which are always changing. So the explanation of the so-called engaging with reality, I think, as we should not have any difficulty here. It's very simple. Then we can go to these 16 exercises. Okay, I have found it finally. So let us read these 16 training by the way of 16 aspects. He calls these 16 exercises 16 aspects. But it is little confusing because actually meditation on the Four Noble Truths, on the realities, is the meditation on the 16 aspects in the Buddhist tradition. Maybe he is trying to join them together because these previous exercises lead to the seeing of the Four Noble Truths. And the 16 aspects or 16 exercises on meditation on the breath is then the path of meditation through which these 16 aspects will be fully penetrated. The 16 aspects of suffering. 16 aspects of the truth of suffering, truth of cause of suffering, truth of cessation, and the truth of the middle path. So it has its logic. So when one is thoroughly trained in the four realities, has eradicated the attributes that are to be dispelled by the path of seeing, those that are to be dispelled by the path of meditation still remain. By the path of seeing, the so-called samyojanas, how to translate the samyojanas? Jie, the bondages? No, this is not. The ties. Must be a better English word. Fetters. Yeah, fetters is better. Ties or fetters. By path of seeing, we can cut the fetters, but only partially. We can cut them completely then by the path of meditation. So the Buddhist training has a 5 paths we have mentioned before. First we have to have a path of accumulation of merit. Then we can have the correct effort. Go in the northern tradition through these 4 stages of the path of effort or application. The heat, the summit, the endurance, and the first worldly dharma. Then the ultimate reality is revealed. When it is revealed, we understand the whole. So the Abhidharma Kosha explained only the when we see the whole in the practice of mindfulness of the mental objects, we can cut completely the defilements. In order to cut the defilements, we have to see the whole. We have to see the whole in terms of the 4 noble truths. Then we can not only injure the defilements, but cut them completely. First by path of seeing, and then completely by the path of meditation. Then the path has been accomplished. As far as the Arahat is concerned, what is to be done has been done. So as far as liberation of the disciples is concerned, no more learning. So as long as we have not cut completely the fetters that we have to learn, when we have cut the fetters, no more learning. And fetters are, of course, in the mind. You don't find any fetters outside. mind is what connect the phenomena. I is no hindrance to the colors. Mind is not hindrance to the phenomena. The fetters is hindrance. Very important to understand. When we have severed the fetters, then freedom. My teacher used to, now we can tell a little story, very interesting story, which my teacher was especially fond of. A story of a naughty child. Have you ever seen a naughty child? What does a naughty child do? Always injures. Because he's very frustrated, so when he sees some creature, he wants to harm it. Spider net, he breaks it. The grasshopper, he kills it. Everything he tries to disturb. So such a naughty child goes to a forest, maybe run away from school, take a stick, and on the way he beats the branches, he beats whatever he sees. And such a naughty child comes to a forest. If you are in Sri Lanka or in the tropical countries, in the forest you have these termite maiwo, how to say, the anthills, termite anthills, sometimes very big. In the he sees this termite anthill, and he pokes his stick into that, and who sleeps in the anthills? The cobra. The cobra likes best to coil inside the anthill and sleeping peacefully. Now this little child comes with a stick, then the cobra will awake. Then he continues killing these termites and putting the stick inside. The cobra will come out and bite him. So similarly is explained the training. When we practice the first base of the path, which is called in Southern Buddhism Tat Anga Pahana, we counter the attachment by contemplating the non-beautiful object. We counter the anger by contemplating the beautiful objects, and so on. So the defilements will arise, but they will not strike. They will not lead to unwholesome action by the body and the speech, but they will not be able to control the mind. So the mind will still give rise to all kinds of unwholesome thinking. Now when we go to samadhi, then the cobra not only will not come out and strike, it will sleep peacefully. But it is still in the anthill. So in the state of samadhi, the mind becomes pure, but the cobra is still there. When it gets a chance, when we go out of Zen, it may strike again. So, what to do? Only when one practices the wisdom, then the until our heart can become empty. So these are the stages of the path. When the anthill, the heart becomes empty, then the eye and the color are not fettered. The mind and the mental objects are not fettered. So there is a agama which explains that the black bull is not the obstacle for the white bull, but the bondage between the yoke between them is the obstacle. Similarly, the eye is no obstacle to the colors not obstacles to the eye, but our fetters, our greed, our anger is the obstacle between them. So when the anthill becomes empty, no more obstacle. Why no more obstacle? Because no more clinging, no more grasping. So when the ultimate reality is seen, this grasping is there, but it appears as unreal. So this is a great relief. Then, by practicing these 16 exercises here, we can, so to say, completely free our heart from the cobra, which stands, of course, for this, our defilements, our fetters, and the heart becomes empty. This is a very nice story. And how to do it, he will explain. In order to eradicate them, one thoroughly trains by way of 16 aspects or 16 exercises. How do they call it in Chinese? Shen Xing, What are the 16 aspects? We have learned the first 4, which explain the meditation or the mindfulness, literally gone into the body. According to the tradition, the first you have to isolate the body, to penetrate the body, so practice thoroughly the mindfulness of the body, then the mindfulness of the sensations can be realized. In this tradition, the mindfulness of the sensations is based on the experience of dhyana. Then we can really practice mindfulness of sensations in the depths. we will see. Then the mindfulness of the sensations, because the mind is, this worldly mind is concerned mainly with the differentiation of sensations. So the understanding of the sensation leads to understanding of the mind, because due to sensations we create karma, they are the main cause of our defilements. And through understanding the mind, we can understand the mental objects, which frees the mind. So there is a sequence, but actually when you practice one by one, you can join the understanding together and see the whole. Only when one sees the whole, one can abandon the suffering. This principle is in all Buddhist traditions. If you see only the part, you cannot abandon suffering. You have to see the whole. And the whole, we have learned, is the 5 aggregates and the dependent origination. If we understand only the aggregate of the form, it's not enough. But when we understand the whole, we can use the thorough understanding of the aggregate of the form, or thorough understanding of the aggregate of the sensations, or the thorough understanding of the aggregate of consciousness, or the thorough understanding of the mental objects, to enter this great city of nirvana. But in order to understand the whole, we should understand one by one. In the teaching of the teachers of the Bodhisattva path, you actually understand the whole from the very beginning. Why? The form you cannot reach, the sensations you cannot reach. You are chanting the Heart Sutra. The mind you cannot reach, the mental objects you cannot reach, nothing can be reached. And this is a whole. So one practices mindfully inhaling, mindfully noting the breath being inhaled. One practices mindfully exhaling, mindfully noting the breath being exhaled. This we have already explained. This explains the practice of counting. Through the practice of counting, we go into all these exercises. That's why here the practice of counting is also explained as a base for seeing the ultimate reality. It can be connected with the shamatha aspect, the vipassana aspect. So let us finish here. Tomorrow we will devote our time to these 16 exercises, and I hope we can cover them and make the things clear. So let us go to the questions so that they don't accumulate too much. Can meditation be used to help with sleep? Or can I meditate in order to get some sleep? Very good question. Actually, many of us have the same problem. When you meditate, the mind becomes very sensitive, very bright. It is very difficult to sleep. But when you become a good meditator, actually you don't need so much sleep. The Buddha, even so, for some of us it may be hard to believe, the Buddha advises his disciples to sleep or to rest only one yama, which is 4 hours. 4 hours should be enough. Now, my teacher always used to say, who wants to sleep? The defilements want to sleep. So actually the body means awakening. And it is said that actually the Arahat does not dream. He enough for him to rest. So for him the 4 hours of rest are enough. Of course for us no, not so. But when we meditate, we can relax well. You are now learning also a little bit of Qigong, a little bit of yoga. It also helps to relax. When one can relax, then one does not need so much sleep. Why one needs so much sleep? While people who are active in the world have stress, need so much sleep because of the tension. Where does the tension come from? From the defilements. The Arahat is always relaxed in all situations. No exception. Why? Because he is always practicing we have explained that before, he's always in the state of the non-partiality of the mind. What means non-partiality of the mind? Not attached to the pleasant, not rejecting the unpleasant, and being awake and clear while experiencing neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And this state is perfected in a deep samadhi. Then in deep samadhi one can relax perfectly. Then one needs hardly any sleep at all. Can the mental image of the breath be different at different meditation sittings? Yes, of course it can. Actually, when you have a clear mental image, you should not do that, but you can play with it. You can make it larger, you can make it smaller according to your need. When you learn the kasinas, each yechu, you actually enlarge the object as big as a world, and then you make it as small as the tip of the needle. This belongs to the training. Tibetan Buddhism, they practice shamatha on the image of the Buddha. They also make it big and small and big and small and big and small. If too much joy arises, especially after interview with Bhante, the mind is not balanced and tends to go to excitement. What to do? Mindfulness, very simple. Always try to be mindful. It's sometimes hard, even for Lao Chan, but we have to do it. No one will do it for us. So they hang on the door this Kalama Sutta. It explains very clearly. No one will do the practice for us. Could Bhante explain more about how to use interim breath in the practice? Well, we will talk about it tomorrow. It needs a bit longer explanation, and the text explains it. I felt my body expand and shrinks in my Tantien area. Then I felt a force, very strong force, that tried to pull my body left and right. Can I just ignore my feeling, or do I need to do something to hold my body from shaking? Now, this experience actually is very interesting, and you should make it a mind opener. How we experience the object depends how we make it in the mind. So this experience is certainly connected with how you made this chi in the belly in your mind. The chi in the belly always accumulates, but depends how you feel it, then you will also then react. But very important is to get detached from these sensations. Only through detachment we can then learn to control them. If we are holding to them, then all kinds of strange things may happening. So it is a lesson to detach. Then these sensations will not be, say, controlling us, but we can control them. We can use them to develop this inner force. When I am very relaxed and the mind is on the breath, my body tends to tilt to the right for about 30, 40 degrees. If I change position to the middle way, it's not easy to change the position of the middle way. You have to become a perfect yogi. We are always somehow a little bit tilted. That's why it's so important to visualize the pranic body. This central channel is in the pranic body, it's not in the physical body. These meridians and so on, they are also in the pranic body. The pranic body and the physical body, they of course one body, but the physical body, so-called in yoga, it's called aharakaya, the body nourished by rice and beans and all rough nutrition, while the pranic body is nourished by the prana itself, and it is very subtle and it penetrates everywhere. If I change position to the middle way, the object may go back to a more coarse one. What should I do? Again, the cure for all problems is mindfulness. One should be mindful. If one is mindful, one changes the bodily posture and it will not disturb the meditation. But if one starts paying attention to these things, then the mindfulness of the breath will go away. So whatever is happening, we have learned the mindfulness should stay on the breath. And then we can change the posture and still experience the breath very clearly. Now if we pay attention to if our body is 30 or 40 degrees bent, then we lose the sensation of the breath, clear sensation of the breath, and the mind will naturally become coarse, because what makes the mind subtle is precisely the mindfulness. The stable mindfulness means stable perception, and stable perception means stable sensation, and stable sensation means stable mind. Very important to understand. And how do we get it? By making the mental object clear. The touch of the mental object is subtle. The touch of the five senses of the body is always more gross. And when the mind turns to that touch, it will become gross. Each person's breath is related to his, her past life. Yes, for sure. If we did not have past life, we would not have the present life. At least if one is Buddhist, one should believe that. What is the object of the belief of the Buddhist? Do you know? The Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, of course, the triple gem, then the past five aggregates, the present five aggregates, the future five aggregates, the dependent origination, and the teachings of the Buddha. If you practice the path of the Bodhisattva, then the suchness, you have to add. These are the objects of the faith. So, the breath means life, and the present life is related to the past life. Each person's breath pattern is unique, like each individual finger point. Each individual's finger point. You mean the fingerprint, maybe, huh? When you come to America, each individual fingerprint, if you nuisance for the country, they can catch you. very important. So each person's breath pattern is unique. In a way, it is because our breathing, we have already explained, is based in body and the mind. And some persons tend to be more excited, some persons tend to be more peaceful, some persons tend to be get angry very quickly, some persons don't get angry at all, some persons tend to be rather non-sensitive, some persons tend to be very sensitive. All this is reflected in breathing. When you meditate on the breath, you will get more and more intuition into that. Breath is also connected with the movement we have learned, with the speech. How you speak also reflects your mind. How you move the body reflects your mind. How you breathe reflects your mind. So you don't need to have supernatural powers. If you have, so much the better. You can see how the person is breathing, how he's moving his body, how he is speaking. Then you can guess what the conditioning of his mind is. Could you compare dhyana and Chinese Zen? The Chinese Zen does not normally train in the dhyanas. It does not mean that this training is an obstacle, but it does not much pay attention to that. This is difference between the early Mahayana teachers and the later Mahayana teachers. The early Mahayana teachers like Kumarajiva and so on, he is explaining meditation exactly like in the Agamas, only adds the philosophy of emptiness. But later, the dhyanas, the Huineng says, I do not teach the 8 liberations. 8 liberations mean the dhyanas. It does not mean that the practice of dhyanas is not useful, but he does not teach. The result is that it ceased to be emphasized, because Huineng is the, so to say, the historical, real first founder of this. It does not mean there were not teachers before him, but they were not important. With Huineng became important. Do you believe a person can suddenly enlighten like Ryuzu? Actually, sudden enlightenment is only a skillful means. There is no such thing as a sudden enlightenment. Even the Huineng, he has been practicing for many, many lives. There is no such thing as sudden enlightenment. It is only the skillful means to attune one to the contemplation of the ultimate reality. No one has ever been suddenly enlightened when he did not practice. Ananda was also suddenly enlightened, but he has practiced. And you can become also suddenly enlightened when you practice, but without practice, impossible. During meditation, the images of mind are related to past life. Can be, yes, sure. In our mind, actually are so many things are stored, we are not conscious, and many of them can come in meditation. In meditation, all kinds of images may appear. That's why it's so important to not to follow them, but to stay with the meditation object. Otherwise, one will get lost in the jungle. Our mind is like a jungle. Anything can, any nice animals, but also many horrifying animals can appear from the mind. Like in the jungle, you have some very, very kind animals, but suddenly can appear some very horrifying animals and snakes. In our mind the same. But when you have training in meditation, usually these horrifying pictures go away, because the mind becomes peaceful. These horrifying pictures, they are actually nothing but our own thoughts. And the mind is also nothing but our own thoughts, reflecting our previous thoughts. Please explain further shamatha nimitta. Leave perception via 5 senses to subtle form. No more breath. Well, we will talk about it tomorrow. It's a step-by-step explanation. And we have explained some of it. We have explained the mental touch is subtle. The touch of 5 senses is not subtle. When you have a subtle touch, you have the subtle sensation. When you have the subtle sensation, you have the subtle mind. When you have the subtle mind, the mind can illumine the object, mental object. This is how you can go into the dhyana. Is there similarity between dhyanas and jhanas? It is the same. The dhyana is a Sanskrit and jhana is a Pali. Just the language is different. Do we control the breath or only let it flow naturally? If you control the breath, it is not anapanasati meditation. Anapanasati meditation means just be mindful of the breath, not controlling the breath. Vasubandhu in Abhidharma Kosha explained, therefore I don't know if he is right to do so, but he explained that this anapanasati meditation exists only in Buddhism. No other religion has it. Because he believes other religions all try to control the breath. In following, do we simply observe the qualities of the breath, or do we actually follow it into the gross, subtle spaces? Well, when you pay attention to the gross breath, you of course only follow at the touch where you can identify the breath. When you don't breathe the gross breath through the nose, then you can experience this expansion and shrinking in the whole body, and you can experience them in each and every part of the body. That is not a problem. So let us finish here. We will do a bit of recitation. It is like you can compare with when you bathe a lot, you don't need to drink water, because when you bathe, the water will penetrate into the skin also, and the body will absorb it. Similarly, the body is absorbing the prana all the time. There are some beings, even some Westerners who meditate, who can just live on prana. They don't need any food, they don't need, they just live on prana. So now we can recite the Sutra of Love, and again Sutra of Love in Pali this time. We recite it in English, and then we recite the Heart Sutra in Sanskrit. And tomorrow then we go to English again. Karaniya mata kusalene yantang santang padam abhisameche Sako ujuche sujuche suvachochasse mudu anatimani Santu sakoche subaroche apakichoche salahukavuti Santindriyoche nipakoche apagabo kulesu ananugiddoa nachakundang samachare kinchi Yenye vinyu pare upavadeyum Sukino va kemino hontu Sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta Yeke chipana bhutatti Tasava tavarava anavasesa Digha vaye mahantava Majima rasakha anakatulla Dittha yeva addittha Yecha dure vasanti avidure Bhuta va sambhave siva Sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta Naparo param nikumbete Na atimanyete katanchinam gamchi Vyaro sana patigasanya Na anyamanya sadukam nichaye Mata yata niyam puttamayusa eka puttamanurakke Evampi sababhute sumanasam bhavaye aparimanam Mettam cha sabbalokasmin manasam bhavaye aparimanam Udang adoche tiriyanche asambadam averam asapattam Thittang charan nisinova Sayanova Yavatassa vigatamindo Etam satim adittaye Brahmam etam viharamidamau Ditincha anupaggama silava Dasanena sampanno Kame suvineya gedhang Nahijatu gabbaseyam Punaretiti. Now the Heart Sutra in its original form. Om Namo Bhagavatyai Arya Pragya Paramitayai Arya Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Gambiram Pragya Paramitacharya Charamano Vyavalokayati sma panchaskandastamsha svabhava shunyan pashyati sma. Iha Shariputra rupam shunyata shunyata iva rupam. Rupam na pritak shunyata shunyataya na pritak rupam. Yat rupam sa shunyata ya shunyata tat rupam. Evameva vedana samya samskara vijnanam. Iha Shariputra sarvadharma shunyata lakshana anutpana anirudha amala avimala anuna aparipurna. Tasmat Shariputra shunyataya na rupam na vedana na samgya na samskara na vijnanam na chakshu shrotra grana jihva kaya manamsi na rupa shabda gandha rasa sparshtavya dharmaha na chakshu vijnana dhatu yavan na mano vijnana dhatu na avidya kshayo yavan na jara maranam na jara marana kshayo na dukha samudaya nirodha margaha na jnanam na praptiyo na apraptihi. Tasmat Shariputra praptitvat bodhisattvasya pragya paramitamasritya viharati achita avarana chita avarana nastitvat. Atrasto viparyasa atikranto nishtha nirvana prapta. Triyadva vyavastita sarva sambudha pragya paramitamasritya anutara samyak sambodhim abhisambudha. Tasmad gyatavyam pragya paramita mahamantro mahavidya mantro anutara mantro sama asama mantraha sarva dukha prashamana satyam amityatvat pragya paramitaya. Ukto mantraha tatyatha gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisvaha gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisvaha gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisvaha. So now we recite the transference of merit. Yuan Tse Kung Te Pu Ji Yi Qie Wo Teng Yi Zhong Seng Jie Kung Chen Fo Tao Eta Vata Chamehi Sampatam Punya Sampadam Sabbe Deva Anumodantu Sabha Sampati Siddhyam Eta Vata Chamehi Sampatam Punya Sampadam Sabbe Bhuta Anumodantu Sabha Sampati Siddhyam Eta Vata Chamehi Sampatam Punya Sampadam Sabbe Satta Anumodantu Sabha Sampati Siddhyam Aka Satta Chabumatha Deva Naga Mahidika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Chiramrakantu Lokasasana. Aka Satta Chabumatha Deva Naga Mahidika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Chiramrakantu Desana. Aka Satta Chabumatha Deva Naga Mahidika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Chiramrakantu Tumamparam. So that much for today, and we try our best tomorrow. Tomorrow the last chance to get clarity, so please try hard.